Tonight's big stories. The latest SWS survey shows President Bongbong Marcos's net satisfaction rating rebounding in June, but he's still far behind his two predecessors, Duterte and Aquino, during the same period in their presidencies.
A group led by former Finance Undersecretary Cielo Magno and Senator Coco Pimentel has filed a petition before the Supreme Court seeking to block the diversion of PhilHealth's 89.9 billion pesos in excess funds to the National Treasury.
And Senator Bato de la Rosa says he will feel betrayed if President Marcos allows investigators from the International Criminal Court to enter the Philippines. And later, we will be speaking to another person being implicated in that ICC probe, General Oscar Albayalde.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Our top story tonight, or one of them at least, President Marcos's satisfaction rating rebounding from the lowest level since he assumed office. That's according to a survey conducted by SWS from June 23 to July 1st, 2024. Okay, so the survey, which interviewed 1,500 Filipino adults, found that a majority, or 55% to be precise, are satisfied with his performance. That is a 5-point increase from the March figure. This satisfaction stands at 28%, a slight decrease from 31% previously. That means the president's net satisfaction rating is now at plus 27, classified as moderate, and is a 7-point improvement from March's plus 20.
The president received his highest satisfaction rating in Balanced Luzon at 60%, followed by Metro Manila with an increase to 57%, and the Visayas, which rose to 55% from 49%. Although his lowest rating was in Mindanao at 46%, this represents a significant 15-point increase from the March reading. His net satisfaction rating in Mindanao, which is of course a stronghold of the Dutertes, now stands at a neutral plus 5, up from negative 19 4 months ago.
The survey also revealed that almost half of the respondents believe the president will fulfill some of his promises. Meanwhile, 23% believe that almost none or none of the president's promises will be fulfilled. During the survey period, some of the major issues included Vice President Sara Duterte's resignation from the Marcos cabinet, China's ongoing aggression in the West Philippine Sea, and the subsequent response of the Philippine government, as well as congressional inquiries into Pogos and the suspension of Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Go. It is also worth noting that President Marcos's net rating is lower than that of his two predecessors during the same period in their presidencies. In their second year, President Benigno Aquino III got a net satisfaction rating of plus 42 in the May 2012 survey, while President Duterte garnered plus 45 net satisfaction in June 2018. Again, President Marcos's current score stands at plus 27.
Now, as they have promised, a group led by former Finance Undersecretary Cielo Magno and Senator Coco Pimentel has filed a petition at the Supreme Court. This is against the diversion of the 89.9 billion pesos in excess funds from PhilHealth. JC Cosico with the report.
Concerned citizens filed a petition before the Supreme Court today to block the transfer of 89.9 billion pesos in so-called excess funds of PhilHealth back to the National Treasury. Among the petitioners were former Finance Undersecretary Cielo Magno, Health Reform Advocate Mingita Padilla, Senator Coco Pimentel, and the Philippine Medical Association. They argued that Congress, including a provision on unprogrammed appropriations in the budget, is unconstitutional. Petitioners also stressed that any excess funds should be used to increase benefits and reduce contributions for PhilHealth members instead of being used on unprogrammed activities.
Ito po yung mas makatarungang dapat gawin, lalong-lalo na at itinaas natin ang premium na binabayaran ng mga manggagawa. Hindi po tama na kuhanin natin ang pondong ito para pondohan yung mga iba't ibang proyekto na na-identify ng Kongreso natin.
PhilHealth has remitted about 20 billion pesos to the National Treasury. They believe this amount should be returned and the planned remittance of the remaining 70 billion pesos should be stopped. The DOH earlier said that part of the excess funds was used for health emergency allowances for health workers, but petitioners say that's enough justification.
Hindi po nangangahulugan na dahil sa health sector din ginamit ay justified na o legal na. Malinaw po na ang budget na to ay nakalaan para sa premium ng mga indirect contributors natin.
The group also disputed Finance Chief Ralph Recto's claim that remitting the excess funds to the National Treasury would benefit the economy. Magno is confident that their petition to the Supreme Court is strong. She also called on Congress to be more vigilant as they kick off budget deliberations next week.
Sana po magkaroon ng mas transparent at mas accountable na proseso ng pagbabudget dahil alam naman po natin na itong pangyayaring ito ay nag-ugat sa bicameral committee ng Kongreso natin. Na wala man lang transparency, accountability, hindi natin alam kung ano ang nangyari at biglang nagkaroon ng mga ganitong insertion.
The DOF had previously defended the utilization of unused and idle funds of government corporations, arguing that it's more prudent than resorting to borrowing or increasing taxes. Finance Chief Ralph Recto said his office has yet to receive a copy of the petition, but that they are ready to answer any question on the legality of Department Circular 003-2024. Recto emphasized that legal due diligence was exercised through coordination with the Governance Commission of GOCCs, the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, and the Commission on Audit, all of whom have issued a favorable opinion on its legality. Recto went on to say, "I made it clear that I never opposed any recommendations to reduce PhilHealth member contributions." He stressed that President Bongbong Marcos has already announced that PhilHealth will enhance its benefits with improved medical aid packages for a broad range of illnesses, such as pneumonia, hypertension, and cancer. But former Finance Yusek Magnus says it shouldn't stop there, and it's the DOF's responsibility to ensure the national budget doesn't get bloated.
I also have two messages to Secretary Recto. Either one, it's not an option. Number one, please improve the efficiency of PhilHealth because the job of the executive is to make sure that PhilHealth does its mandate of providing us comprehensive health insurance. That's one. And number two, please improve our fiscal management because the reason why we have this problem is that Congress bloated our national budget, and now they're scrambling to find money to finance this bloated budget.
For News 5, JC Cosico, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, a fire hit the 5-story residential commercial building in Manila's Chinatown early this morning, killing 11. The fire began around 7 a.m. and was put out at around 10 a.m. Responders found the victims in bed, suggesting they may have been trapped or died from suffocation while sleeping.
Nasa kwarto lang po sila, nasa kalang beddings lang sila.
Ano ibig sabihin?
Ibig sabihin po 'yun, hindi po nakita nila lumaki na po 'yung apoy, nasuffocate na sila. Kaya wala po tayong nakita sa CR, wala tayong nakita sa pinto, kundi nandoon lang po sila sa higaan po nila.
Investigators say the fire started from a faulty LPG tank that exploded. They also noticed that the building's fire exits had narrow access and obstructions. Manila Mayor Honey Lacuna has ordered all building and fire officials in the city to conduct an inspection of all structures with the highest fire risk, especially those that are at least 15 years old.
Moving on now to other news. After repeatedly saying he's never cooperating with the International Criminal Court, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa is now singing a slightly different tune. Now he says he's open to talking to the ICC in connection with its drug war investigation, but under certain conditions. Here's the report.
Kung sabihin nila na mag-interview lang, then why not? Why not? Kung may itatanong sila sa akin, ako ay isang matinong tao, hindi ako bastos, sasagutin ko.
That's Senator Bato de la Rosa's reply when asked if he was willing to be interviewed by the ICC over what he knows of the drug war of former President Rodrigo Duterte. De la Rosa was Duterte's first PNP chief. But he was quick to clarify that this does not mean he is submitting to the court's jurisdiction, and there should be prior communication which the senator says he has yet to receive. He holds the same sentiment towards the Interpol, which according to former Senator Antonio Trillanes has already put De La Rosa on blue notice. Just this week, Justice Secretary Boyeng Rimulya said his office will not block any move from Interpol to serve any arrest warrants from the ICC. But
Kung lulabas ang arrest warrant ito'y isi-serve sa akin ng taga-Interpol. I will not submit to their jurisdiction. I will not submit to their jurisdiction. Dahil alam ko, wala silang jurisdiction sa atin. At kung sila itutulungan ng ating kapulisan, well, hindi ako magkipag-gira sa ating mga kapulisan. I will submit to the authority of our government, pero kung ang yan ay kautosan ng ating korte.
Senator De La Rosa is hopeful that an ICC interview or an Interpol arrest will never come. But he says he will feel betrayed if indeed President Marcos doesn't keep his promise to not let ICC investigators into the country.
Kung totoo yan na nagbago na ang stand ng ating Pangulo, I feel betrayed.
In case Malacanang fails him, De La Rosa is looking at support from a very familiar place.
I am hoping that the Senate as an independent institution, equal branch of government, ay manindigan din para sa kanyang miyembro.
Meantime, ICC Assistant to Counsel Cristina Conti believes it's just a matter of time before an arrest warrant against the ICC's primary suspect Rodrigo Duterte comes out.
Confidential ang proceedings, pero kung para sa amin, maglalabas na yan ng warrant of arrest sa loob ng taon na ito.
Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
The other former PNP chief implicated in the ICC's drug war probe is General Oscar Albayalde, whom we actually have on the show tonight. Good evening, sir. Welcome to The Big Story. Thanks for making time for us.
Yes, good evening, Gretchen, Shawn, and Regina, and good evening to everyone that's watching tonight.
You've had a very eventful past several weeks, sir, no?
Excuse me?
You've had a very eventful and busy past few days and several weeks.
Yes, of course. It's almost every day that we are in the news again.
We've been trying to get you for a while. I'm not going to beat around the bush. My first question to you is, have you been contacted by the International Criminal Court or by the Interpol or any of their representatives in any way, shape, or form?
No, wala pa po. In any way, shape, or form, wala pa. Even in the letter or nothing at all.
Okay, General, how do you take the confirmation of Solicitor General Minardo Guevara that indeed the ICC has been wanting to get your side for an interview to get a more complete picture on the case, given that that will be the side of the ICC, supposed that it is the interest of the ICC, will you be willing to give a statement?
Well, first of all, that goes to show that the government is not cooperating with the ICC. If the Solicitor General has actually received the letter, but we did not receive one, so ibig sabihin, hindi po yan pinadala sa atin. So we are confident that the government will not cooperate with the ICC. It's because, number one, we are no longer a member of the ICC since 2019, I think. So sa atin po, wala po tayong nakuha whatever letter or text messages from that we are required to appeal with the prosecutor of the ICC.
You have said, General, that if you were ordered directly by the DOJ or the Justice Department that you would agree to the interview, but you also said that your personal decision is to refuse an interview with the ICC investigator. So where do you stand right now, no? As this issue heats up, as a Justice Secretary has spoken, as a Solgen has already spoken?
Well, first of all, everything is all speculative for now because we haven't received yet a summon coming from the DOJ itself, no? Wala pong official na document, so everything is speculation and everything just comes out from the media, no? Kaya we're waiting actually, and we are confident that the president himself will not accede to the request of the ICC. It's because he repeatedly said already that the government will not cooperate with the ICC, and we trust the president here.
It depends how you define cooperation, because the DOJ just yesterday said they will not block Interpol if it were to serve arrest warrants. The Philippines is still a member of the Interpol, the International Criminal Police Organization. So it depends how you define cooperate. It sounds like the government at this point is going to let ICC do whatever it needs to do. So, and To that end, Senator Bato de la Rosa has already said he will feel betrayed if the investigators do come into the country. How are you taking this news?
Well, number one, yes, they will not block anything coming from the Interpol. But of course, that request from the ICC will still undergo validation and due process from the Secretary General of the Interpol also. Because number one, titignan din nila if we are actually a member of the ICC, no? And we have jurisdiction over our citizens too. Kanino po nila tayo ibibigay sa ICC, where in fact we're not no longer a member of the ICC. So pwede nila tayo ibigay no less than probably from the DOJ. And kung sabihin naman nila ng DOJ that they will not cooperate, then we also have our lawyers here, and we will also exhaust our legal means here.
Well, apart from that, General, Secretary Remulla has actually said that if an arrest warrant is issued, that they respect the actions of the Interpol 99.9% of the time. Tama po kayo, hindi po tayo membro ng ICC, pero membro tayo ng Interpol sa kasakali. Ano pong masasabi niyo po rito? Is this a change of tune? Nagulat po ba kayo doon sa sinabi ni Secretary Remulla?
Hindi po kasi natin alam. We do not know the rules of the Interpol nga, no? Because that will still undergo process. If they will really serve the arrest warrant, kung talagang meron pong magkakaroon ng warrant of arrest or a red notice, no, na sinasabi. And of course, ang malaking tanong dyan is kanino nila tayo i-turn over? Is it the ICC or the Philippine government? Wherein the ICC has lost jurisdiction over us. It's because we're no longer a member of the ICC since 2019.
Okay, but of course, General Albayalde, I still remember the days when you were the NCRPO chief, tapos no, naging PNP chief po kayo. That was somewhere in the middle, no, of the term of former President Duterte. You have gone on record to say that your conscience is clear and that wala ka namang narinig na mga direktang orders at that time when you were NCRPO chief and PNP chief, no, giving direct instructions on the killing. Are you willing to stand by those statements that you have said previously?
Yes, ma'am. I have repeatedly said that not even the president did not directly or indirectly told us that we'll be killing during the drug war. Wala po siyang sinabi na ganyan. He might be saying that over news or in the TV, pero wala po siyang sinabi ganyan. And we as law enforcers, we are bound to follow the rules of law. Kasi po kami ay nag-ooperate within the limits of the law, no? At of course, meron po tayong sinusunod din na police operational procedures during police operations. At yan po palagi ay nakasaad dyan is we follow the human rights, no? At wala po tayong sinabi at hindi tayo nagkulang sa pagdidisiplina sa ating mga kapulisan. Where in fact from 2016 to 2019 during my time until RD of NCRPO until such time that I became the Chief PNP in 2019, hindi ko po magkamali, we dismissed more than 3,700 erring policemen. And we penalized more than 12,000 of them, yung mga nang maabuso po. Precisely para hindi nga maabuso yung sinasabing war on drugs.
If you don't believe that the war on drugs was a policy, how do we explain the spike in deaths under President Duterte? I'm going to give you some numbers here. On day one of his presidency, for instance, Amnesty International said police killed 32 on one day in the name of the drug war. And in the first 100 days, they said some 3,000 people were killed that are classified as EJKs. I believe we also have that graphic of the Amnesty International saying 3,000 deaths. There you go, that's the headline. How do we explain all these deaths if you don't think the war on drugs was a policy, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Those deaths are still under investigation. Hindi naman po lahat dahil yes, of course, kasi may nakakarinig sa presidente doon na may sinasabi siya sa over the TV. Some people really probably took advantage of that, no? And during my time as the NCR, meron din po kaming nahuli noon na one group that took advantage wherein a minor was victimized doon sa Manila noon, that we realized that there are some people taking advantage of this war on drugs. Dahil naririnig nga nila si Presidente Rodrigo Duterte na nagsasabi ng ganyan sa over the TV, but not to the policemen. And of course, sabi nga namin, alam naman po namin kung ano ang lawful at saka unlawful order.
General, nabanggit po ni Senator Trillanes that you, along with the 4 others, the 5 suspects identified in the ICC document, have indispensable cooperation into the war on drugs. Ibig sabihin, hindi matatawaran ang role po ninyo doon sa war on drugs. Ano po masasabi niyo po doon?
Well, because I'm probably the regional director then and the chief Philippine National Police. Remember, meron po kaming level of chain of command, no? At yung nangyari doon sa baba, of course, they have the stations, then they have the provincial command, and then they have the regional, and then that goes to the different drug enforcement units bago po makarating sa chief PNP yan. So marami pong dadaanan yan. And they have the full responsibility also, the different commanders have the full responsibility over the actions of their policemen on the ground. It's not always the chief PNP, no? Dahil napakarami pong trabaho ng isang chief PNP, na isang commander on top. Dahil hindi lang naman po yung police operations ang ginagawa ng ang trabaho ng isang chief PNP. All the administrative and police operations and many more are the responsibilities o yung day-to-day activities ng isang chief PNP.
So linawin lang natin, sorry Reg, kanina nung sinabi ninyo, General, na some people might have taken advantage on the ground. When you say some people, did you mean some policemen, or are these not cops but took advantage of the situation to keep siguro their mga barangay safer during that time?
As I've said, yung iba po, meron kaming na-identify noon na isang grupo, no? So we assume that there are really some groups or individuals that took advantage of this, no? At yun ay under investigation. Yung sa amin naman, yung mga nakita natin that go beyond the limits of the law, kung napansin niyo po, even during the first 3 months or probably September 2016, a few months after the war on drugs, meron na po kaming finailan na murder cases against our own policemen. If you remember the case doon sa Pasay po na may namatay na mag-ama sa loob ng Pasay City Police Office, we filed the murder cases against our own policemen, and the murder warrants of arrest were issued against them for murder. And I think this policeman went on the wall.
So is it your belief that you have zero culpability when it comes to the war on drugs, General? Because what I'm hearing from your answer is, number one, you're saying that these were rogue policemen or otherwise who took advantage of the president's pronouncement, former President Duterte's pronouncement. And number two, you said it's not maraming levels yan. It's not always the PNP chiefs that makes these decisions. So is it your belief that you have zero culpability when it comes to this case?
We're number one, we're not justifying any death po dito. And we believe that one death is too many. No, hindi po natin dinajustify yung mga naging patayan dito. Not even one single death we're not justifying, no. Pero ang ano po natin dito, as I've said, meron po kaming sinusunod na chain of command. At as a commander din, hindi po tayo nagkulang sa pagdidisiplina ng ating mga kapulisan. And I think the Filipino people will see doon sa nung ako po'y regional director, no. Diyan po ako probably I was always on the news na nagdidisiplina ng mga pulis natin noon. At hindi po tayo din nagkulang sa pagsasabi sa ating mga kapulisan that all operations should be within the limits of the law and human rights should always be observed.
So that's going to be your defense if the ICC comes calling. Is that correct, General?
Well, we'll see because meron naman pong mga meron din naman tayong mga legal counsel here, no? At of course, marami pong mga ano diyan, marami pa tayong mga pwedeng gawin diyan. We will exhaust all legal means here. Pero hindi naman po natin ito tinatalikuran, no? Of course, we cannot pass responsibilities here. As a commander, of course, yung responsibilidad po nandyan. But the level there is still under question.
So, command responsibility, General, parang gano'n na lang.
Yes, meron pong mga sinasabi nating command responsibility, meron pong ding mga administrative responsibilities dyan, no? both po yan, pareho po yan. That's why when the case is filed against you, meron pong administrative and may criminal.
Okay, General, speaking of command responsibility, alam po natin na may mas mataas pa po sa inyo, si Presidente Duterte. Sa gitna po nitong lahat, nakakausap niyo po ba yung Presidente?
Hindi po. Hindi po. Ang dating Presidente, hindi po. Hindi po. Not even, of course, the present President.
What about si Senator Bato de la Rosa po?
Nagkita po kami pero we did not discuss on the matters of ICC a few months back. Pero hindi po namin napag-usapan.
I wonder if you could share a little bit of your conversation. What was it like? What did you discuss as far as ICC?
We saw each other in a shooting range sa isang fighting competition po.
Shooting range po talaga.
You were competing?
You were letting off steam.
Opo, dahil mahilig si Senator Bato na mag-shooting.
Okay, General, nasa blue notice daw kayo ng Interpol. Hindi, iba yung red notice sa blue notice. Yung blue notice, pag-gather lang ng impormasyon. Hindi talaga kayo manonotify. Kumbaga, confidential information yun. Hindi muna kayo lalabas ng Pilipinas?
Well, there's nothing more to see here because lagi na naman po tayong nandito. In fact, there's nothing more to hide here dahil we have been attending series of congressional hearings regarding alleged EJ case po. So wala na pong dapat itago dito, no? At nandito lang po na tayo sa Pilipinas at yung sinasabing blue notice hanggang ngayon wala rin naman po tayong nakukuhang notice na yan. So that's all speculations as of this time. But then again, sabi ko nga po, we have nothing to hide dahil ongoing until now yung series of hearings sa Committee on Human Rights sa Congress.
If you believe that there's nothing to hide and that you didn't fall short as PNP chief, hindi ka nagkulang, like you said, why not just proactively cooperate with the investigators? Sure, they haven't sent you notice, but you already know that you're likely tagged, so why not proactively reach out to try to clear your name?
Well, first of all, our stand here is we will cooperate if it is sanctioned by the government. Mahirap naman po siguro yung kami mismo ang ipipresenta namin yung sarili namin without the order coming from the government.
Okay, wait, you say our stand. So ibig sabihin, nag-usap po kayong 5 na pare-pareho po kayo?
No, I'm sorry. My stand here. We haven't talked with the others yet.
Do you know if there are others that are speaking to the investigators?
I don't know. I haven't talked to the other 4 yet.
Okay. General, you mentioned you had lawyers already? You have retained counsel?
Wala pa mo pong retainer, no? I'm just having kasi of course in the Philippines mahirap pong maghanap ng international lawyer dito. But of course yung mga nakakaintindi meron na pong nag-advise din naman sa atin.
So punot dulo, General, you are kind of doing some preparations just in case mag-come to fruition itong lahat.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, of course.
Okay, well, thank you for being so candid with us tonight.
And in the event that you do get an interview invite or a summons or whatever it is that they call it, what would be your first course of action?
Well, of course, I have to kung talagang if it's, I said, sanctioned by the DOJ, we have no recourse but to attend. Of course, with the aid of the counsel. No? Kaya po ang karapatan naman kahit sino na pag they are under investigation, ay meron pong tumutulong na lawyer sa kanila.
So it's not like you're completely closing the door and saying you are not cooperating, right? So if sanctioned, yun yung condition niyo po. If sanctioned by the government, then you will cooperate.
Yes, opo. But voluntarily, probably not.
Okay. We're going to have to leave that there. We thank you so much for making time to talk to us tonight, former PNP Chief General Oscar Albayalde.
Still ahead, we speak to the authors of a new book that's already making waves called Unrequited Love, Duterte's China Embrace. Journalists Marites Vitug and Camila Lemia join us next. Keep it here on One News.
back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Just how close are the ties that bind China and the administration of former President Rodrigo Duterte? A new book connects the dots and offers some answers, and it's called Unrequited Love, Duterte's China Embrace, and it is authored by journalists Vitug and Camille Elemia. The book captures a time in the country's history when Manila and Beijing ties were at their closest despite a row over the West Philippine Sea. It is a story of Duterte's pivot to China, the factors that influenced him, and the results of his policy shift. And perhaps most interesting of it all, it traces the roots of Duterte's affection for China. And here to tell us more about their new book are the authors themselves. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Camille Lemia and Ms. Vitug. Congratulations on the new book.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it was described there as Duterte's affection for China. Does it really run deep? And what led you to focus on this topic?
Well, why the topic? Kasi it was such a compelling story. In recent history, he's the only Philippine president to completely side with China. At least during Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's time, she was trying to balance.
She was hedging
between the US and China. And, you know, presidents always try to do both, to balance. But in the case of Duterte, October 2016, when he made his first state visit to China, really shocked many people, even some in his cabinet, when he said that he was going to separate himself from the rest of the world and just go with China. So I think that's a story that was compelling enough to do into a book.
So it was totally her idea, and then because we worked together in Rappler, and then because we know, I think initially the backstory was that I was supposed to help with the research, but then I was so honored when she offered me to be a co-author of Marites Vitug. So,
right. I understand the fangirling part. But okay, let's trace it. So we all know right now, anyone who is on Facebook knows that connections between China and the Dutertes are just bandied about, right? But back then, it was, yun nga, medyo weird siya, medyo totoo ba to, parang biglang cambio, and super hard yung cambio niya, di ba? What did you discover was the root of this unrequited love?
Yes, Camille went to do research in Davao and to
we
look at the milieu, so she can talk about it.
Yeah, so I went to Davao and talked to Chinese Filipino businessmen there. Some of them third generation, second generation, and they basically helped me trace the story of Duterte's love for China, which somehow extended or of course, the Filipino-Chinese community, they helped Duterte in terms of like providing jobs because Duterte was really keen on just peace and order. So for Duterte, okay, do whatever you want there, the Chinese community, then I'll just focus on peace and order. And then later on, the Chinese-Filipino community noticed the influx of Chinese from mainland China. And then they also shared with me some of their dynamics, relations there. Like, so they would tell me how the mainland Chinese, like including Michael Yang, the infamous Michael Yang, would really go out of his way early on to try to be on the good side of the Dutertes. So
but
that's how
Michael Yang, right? He is one businessman who is like not third generation, okay, bagong saltas, we call it, fresh off the boat. How does Michael Yang become a stand-in for an entire country?
Yeah, sige, go ahead.
Duterte himself said many times that he actually asked Michael Yang to lay the groundwork of his pivot to China. And coming from, like, looking back at their ties, like, it started in 1990s. So early on, like early 2000s, there were already sister city deals. At that time, it wasn't really much of a big deal. But later part of the Western nations were kind of trying to criticize these sister city deals of China because that's their way to go straight to these communities without getting into the national government processes and all that. So Michael Yang, with the help of the other Filipino-Chinese communities, they would invite more mainlanders and they would serve as agents. That's how he initially made his money. So for example, go to Davao, I can help you create businesses there and all that. And then allegedly, according to Arturo Las Cañas, one of the former Davao Death Squad members, he said that Michael Yang's businesses eventually extended to allegedly drug trafficking and all that.
So from legit to kind of like underworld businesses.
So
former President Duterte must have felt like he could replicate that model nationwide. Is that it?
In fact, he wanted, when he was president, he wanted a loan to borrow money from China to replicate what they did in Davao to fight crime.
Yes.
And this was called the, what was it called again?
The Safe Cities
Cities Project. And they wanted to replicate this in like 18 LGUs. And he said it's a model to fight crime. And the loan was supposed to provide the Philippines money to buy Huawei technology, surveillance technology, facial recognition technology. Well, we're just glad that the loan didn't push through, but it almost did. There were already arrangements about to make an agreement, but it just fell off.
The Americans must have tried to woo former President Duterte as well. I mean, it seems kind of, on the surface to say that it's just that. Is it rooted in his political belief? Is it something like that? O talagang sobrang lalim lang talaga nung pinagsamahan?
No, the milieu, as Camille explained, dun siya lumaki, yun yung environment niya. And then when he went to university, he kept saying that he was a student of Jose Maria Sison, and he was influenced by the founder of the Communist Party. And then I think meron din siyang pretense na he was leaning towards the left. Remember when he became president, he took in left
four cabinet members from the
but
left.
Eventually
It
soured, the relationship soured.
And then there was one thing that really changed Duterte's, like really bolstered his anger towards the U.S. It happened, it was called the Marrying Incident. It was in 2003, if I remember it correctly. So there was this allegedly CIA agent who used to always stay in a hotel in downtown Davao. Then he supposedly accidentally blew himself up. So everyone was thinking, oh, it's okay, we'll bring him to the hospital and the police will interview him afterwards. And then the U.S. suddenly spirited him away, and he was brought to the U.S. And
do you mean like he literally blew himself up, literal?
Yes. So, and then there were talks that he was a CIA agent, and then the U.S. supposedly promised that it will be investigated, but Duterte didn't get any results of that. So that somehow bolstered his anger.
I thought you were going to say because Bato was not given a visa.
That was later on. There was also a thing with Duterte because he got rejected with a U.S. visa. And a friend of his told us that he actually missed the birth of his youngest daughter.
You mean Kitty?
Yes.
Kitty Duterte was born in the
U.S. He wasn't.
Wasn't granted the visa.
We haven't checked. That's not in the book because we haven't checked that.
Okay. But supposedly,
yes, but
that's the story.
It's he didn't get the importance that China was. His friends from China were according him. He didn't get this from the U.S. In fact, he's really very comfortable with his Chinese friends. And when he was president, he even joked that when he gets invited to meetings by Americans, they only serve water. But when he gets invited by the Chinese, there's buffet.
Red carpet.
Yeah,
so and he always says that his mother is Chinese, and he makes so much affinities or affiliations with China. So that's all part and parcel of the milieu and how he grew up.
Yeah. I wanted to get into the field work that you did. You mentioned Davao already, but I know you also did a lot of field work going to some of these projects that were struck under Duterte. Talk us through some of them. Particularly the drug rehabilitation centers.
Yeah, so they really exist.
Yes, they do exist.
The first one we went to was the mega drug rehab center in a military camp in Nueva Ecija. And that was donated by a mainland Chinese philanthropist. And remember, it was touted to be a 10,000 bed capacity. But when we went there, 200 beds.
And then we talked to the people there. Some of the staff there, the social workers, have been there from the start. So they were telling us about how the launch was rushed and that they had to build stuff themselves because they were already in a rush to launch it. And then there were 4 phases. 2 phases are no longer used. So it's just the 2 phases that are being used now. So all in all, it's just 200, 300.
Was it a white elephant? Meaning were there like patients?
Oh, there were, but not the 10,000 bed capacity. So it's a hype. It's a lot of hype and.
Sorry, was it this one or this is a different facility?
That one is the other.
That's the dam.
The
Kaliwa Dam.
Okay.
So that's the other end. Kaliwa Dam, because of course with the Quezon part, there are lots of issues now with the indigenous people. So they just started working on that Rizal part. So until now, there's nothing.
No, it's ongoing.
Yeah, but it's not
ongoing.
finished.
Yeah.
So basically, out of all the pledges of
Yeah.
Duterte, we could really say that there's only one, one that's finished,
Yeah.
because that's the loan. That's the Chico River irrigation project. That's in, we went there in Kalinga and Cagayan. But if we add the grants, or those that are come on, so to speak, we got 3. Or counted as 2 actually, because the government counts as the Rockwell-Makati Bridge and the Intramuros Binondo Bridge. It's counted as 1 by the government.
Okay, I have a friend who studied in China, and he said that it's not actually because of the affection or the unrequited love of China for Duterte. He says that the Chinese are very practical businessmen. And before investing or before putting out money, they want to see how good of an environment we have here to do business. So sinasabi niya na it's not because of the souring relationship or the inability to fulfill promises of China, by China, but because of how practical-minded the Chinese are. Is your final judgment really that China has not been able to give the same level of affection as President Duterte did?
Yeah, because remember in 2016 when he came back from Beijing, there was a long list of promises and pledges, at least a dozen, but out of those we only got 3 loans. One was the finished irrigation project, the other one's the ongoing Kaliwa Dam, and the third was the last one, just on the last month of Duterte's presidency, was the loan for the Davao-Samal Bridge.
Right.
So that's
that one's happening, I heard.
Yes.
Is it
But
true?
there are environmental issues.
It stopped?
No, but there are environmental issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of alanganin, basically.
Yeah, so basically it's just like when it comes to the loans, it's just one thing that's done. The Chico River irrigation project.
Okay.
So we didn't look at the private because it's so difficult. We look at state-owned enterprises.
Yes. Okay.
And one of these, the big one, was the third telco.
Yes.
The one that partnered with
Dito.
Dennis
Uy.
Uy and is now Dito. Yeah.
Okay, I also want to know, with regard to all these projects, they promised so much loan, so much funding for all the infra projects. Now, how did those not materialize? Do you know the root cause of why they fell through? I understand na napirmahan na yung mga deals na yun. Or at least that's how they made it seem to us, press releases, everything.
Yeah. No, actually, iba yung process ng borrowing from China. The loan application is made with the China Exim Bank, and then it takes a year or 2 to process and to approve, and the pandemic made it worse. So that's one reason, the pandemic. The second, also, that after the pandemic, China's economy started to go down. And third is the viability of our projects. I think the biggest expectation was really the Mindanao railways, the 3 railways, because Duterte promised that on his first State of the Nation address.
And
but
all
that didn't.
throughout his
He kept reminding everyone about it.
The flagship.
Yes. And remember that when Marcos had his first cabinet meeting, that was the report made that China did not deliver.
Let's talk about politics for a sec. There's an interesting chapter in your book where you said that China also tried to woo the then ruling party, PDP Laban. What did you find out?
Well, so we found out that during the pandemic, it was lockdown. It was at the peak of the lockdown, so September 2020. And then China sent a big plane, a private plane that will ferry, I think, 5 members of PDP Laban in the middle of lockdown in the Philippines and China to meet with Communist Party of China officials. And then just before leaving, they were offered some secret vaccines.
Oh, wow.
But are these the Sinopharm vaccines that he was injected with? Because that was never released for public consumption. Only a select few popular mainlanders, I will not say the names, and our president got that. And he actually went on TV and said, I got this vaccine. And we're like, how? Because that's not available.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this was September, a few months before he actually got inoculated with Sinopharm. So they were given 20,000 doses but supposedly they returned it. But it just goes to show the lengths that China would go to. Because at that time, we have to understand that China has been suffering international backlash from the initial handling of the pandemic. So they were really trying to...
Let's go to the West Philippine Sea. Some people or analysts would say that this is Duterte's pragmatism in terms of his politics. Like, there has been an arbitral award served in July of 2016, just when Duterte assumed office. Sabi niya, papel lang yan. And totoo naman kasi walang enforcing body yung UNCLOS. And he says that he needs to strike this agreement. He needs to be friendlier, develop bilateral ties with China. And then former spokesperson Harry Roque also mentioned that if not for that friendship, China would have built more artificial islands and bases in the South China Sea. Kasi nakita raw nila yung plano, so napabagal daw nila yun. What did you discover in terms of the West
Before you
Philippine
answer
Sea?
that, we do have to run out a gap very quickly, so we'll give you a couple of minutes to think of your answer. We're going to go for a very quick break. Stay with us, please.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story, and here with us are the authors of Unrequited Love, Duterte's China Embrace, Danguilan-Vitug and Camille Elemia. Welcome back. You're still with us. All right, so coming back to my question on the West Philippine Sea, some political analysts would say that this is Duterte's pragmatism, forming closer ties with China in order to be able to enforce or make China somehow follow the arbitral award in 2016. What would you have to say to that?
Well, maybe he got two concessions from China. One, our military was able to construct on Pag-asa, but that's really what we occupy. They're able to do a runway, they're able to do undisturbed by China. But that's really ours. But because Duterte said, don't obstruct our construction, so we got that. Number two, bumalik yung fishermen sa Scarborough again, on and off. Sometimes they would be allowed to go inside where it's richer stocks in the lagoon, but sometimes they would be outside. So they're still under the mercy of the Chinese Coast Guard.
Linawin lang natin, Ms. Marites, no? Kasi sa Scarborough right now, hindi sila nakakapasok sa lagoon at all. So during the time of Duterte, depende sino nagbabantay.
Yeah,
they would tell me na depende sa mood ng Chinese na nagbabantay. Sometimes what they do is paggabi, pagtulog, nakita nilang tinaas na yung smaller dinghies. So, papasok sila sa loob. Pero paggabi na, mag-uumaga na lalabas sila.
So, yung sinasabi nga na si Duterte, na kumbaga nangyari yun sa time niya. Eh, ngayon, hindi na talaga pinapayagan sa loob.
Pero hindi rin pala siya total concession. Meaning, hindi naman freely and safely labas-pas yung mga fishermen.
It's like asking permission to do something which are within
the
parts
EEZ.
that are within our EEZ.
I want to ask about Chapter 6. Chapter 6 of your book, the way you structured it is 6 parts, right? Six different parts. Yung Chapter 6, failure to rein in government, Duterte unable to rein in government institutions without having read your book yet. What can you tell us about that chapter? Which government institutions, what is it all about?
No, actually, what's most interesting here is that there was a pushback from the Department of Foreign Affairs, from the Department of National Defense, from the Navy, from the Coast Guard eventually. Kasi Duterte, in the end, really failed to make the Philippine institutions and the public rally behind his pro-China pivot. So what I really found interesting is that in the Foreign Affairs Department, of course, leadership counts. No? When it was Teddy Boy Locsin's time, he was more outspoken. And I think the leeway given to him by Duterte is that leadership style Duterte doesn't really care about details. He was just after his drug war, law and order. So Locsin was able to speak up, and the staff were able to contribute ideas. Same in national defense.
Do you think Duterte realized at some point that China wasn't returning his level of affection? And how are the relations now? Because taking a look at the next two elections, the midterms and the 2028 elections, still, China would prove to be a very important player.
Before you answer that, I'm going to add that his mom now has a school in Fujian province.
Oh, yes.
So
that was named after her. So just a small background there. So there are ties that bind in that school. So one of the people close to Michael Yang, it's Joseco, Shuming Yang, owns or is now behind one of the reclamation projects in Manila. So they donated one of the drug centers in Bukidnon. And right after they donated that, the Senate, Senator Zubiri and his brother sponsored a bill that would grant them citizenship. Because here, of course, you couldn't own land if you're not a citizen, right? So you can connect the dots. And then after that, Joseco, the tycoon who got the reclamation deal and the citizenship for his son, built a school in honor of Duterte's mother.
In China.
In his alma mater.
Okay, so how is that relationship now?
Under Marcos?
Did Duterte realize that it wasn't going his way?
Yeah, there was a point, in fact, that he thanked the U.S. effusively after we received the vaccines.
Right.
The MRI vaccines from U.S.
mRNA.
You know what? He said that
we share the same.
Yeah, we share the same values, and he said he was planning to visit the U.S. But what's interesting is that he really touted the help of China, which is true. They were the first really to give us Sinovac, but they donated so many doses. But in the end, we bought 5 million. We bought millions of doses from. We bought more from them, and then it appears. Later, the U.S. gave us more than when China gave.
Later on, di ba? Yung lumabas sobra ng dami and we didn't know, we couldn't find people to inoculate fast enough kasi nagkaroon ng overflow. But in the beginning, kasi a lot of people were saying, teka, baka he's currying China's favor in order to parang squeeze the United States. They were thinking it was a foreign policy strategy.
Like playing one off the other, but turns out it wasn't.
Or is it?
In the beginning, we were giving him too much credit. I think there's no strategy there. He just really wanted the investments because the economy wasn't doing well, especially, and then we went in the pandemic.
But we would say because of that, somehow the U.S. has given us more importance because of that Duterte episode in our history.
They know what it's like to be shut outside. Sorry, we're running out of time, but we got to give you time to talk through your book. Where is it available? Where can people get them? You've run out of copies already in your first run. Congratulations. When is the second run going to be?
So the book will be out on Ateneo de Manila Press's Lazada and Shopee stores and also on their website. So it will be out, the new batch will be out on Monday, August 5.
Yeah. Can they buy it from bookstores directly?
It will be,
people pick up physical
copies? It will soon be out on selected fully booked shops, but if you want to get a copy.
Ms. Maritas, can you hold up
the
book?
Yes.
There you go.
This is my job.
So this is what it looks like. Really great cover. Who did the illustration?
It's Diana David, one of the
artists of
great artists.
Tama ba na masingkit si Duterte dyan?
He kind of looks like half Xi Jinping.
Okay.
So is that on purpose?
If you peel it off, he looks like
Xi Jinping. Okay, now I get it.
Okay, I see the peels now on the side. I was wondering what the white stuff was.
If you rip it off, it's Xi Jinping underneath.
And for those pala who want to read the ebook, there will be a version
soon out on Amazon.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Can't wait to get my hands Monday. I will mental note that.
I'll reserve in Ateneo.
And we want signed copies.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Maritas Vitug and Camille Elemia, authors of Unrequited Love, Duterte's China Embrace, second run on Monday. Don't miss it.
Well, here in the Philippines, gold's allure, whether mined or a legend, continue to lead people to risk it all. Our documentary, Kapit sa Ginto, looks into these through the eyes of our small-scale miners. Please watch this.
Grabe, lalim na nito. Malalim na nito. May katapusan ba to?
Sa matagal ng panahon, ginalugad at hinukay natin ang bawat sulok ng mundo para sa ginto. simbolo ng yaman at karangyaan. Nakatago ito sa mga bato, putik at sa ilalim ng kalupaan.
Para ma-claim na ng taong bayan ang nakatagong kayamanan na narito sa Bangko Sentral ng Republika ng Pilipinas.
Pero totoo nga ba ang bulong-bulungan?
Kaya nagugulat kami pag pinag-uusapan yan.
Na ang mga Pilipino mayaman sa ginto.
Kung gaano tayo kayaman noon, ganun pa rin tayo kayaman ngayon.
Sa likod ng putik, nagtatago ang kinang.
May swerte tayo ngayon!
Hanggang saan nga ba ang kaya nating gawin para lang makamit ang pangako nitong yaman?
Well, the pursuit of the coveted gold is not just in the Olympics, but also here
Very much on the ground.
Our own shores.
It's daily life for
Yes.
some people.
Well, that's subsistence
Mining.
Well, please do watch that documentary on Gretchen Ho Reports this coming August 4, Sunday, 7 p.m. on One News.
And with that, we end the big story for this whole week. It is already August 2nd.
It is a Friday.
It is Friday.
And it is already August.
It is.
I couldn't believe it.
Right?
Well,
Where has the year gone?
Please don't forget to watch our Olympians, support our Olympians.
It is
so
a
much
big weekend.
to watch, so much to read. Also the book that we were just talking about, Unrequited Love. Also the Olympics again this weekend.
Well, with that, we are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night. Great weekend.